Raptors fans are adamant that the team needs to add a center in the offseason, and also it might need to replace Jakob for the team's future. But in today's video, I'm going to explain to you why the problems in Toronto go well beyond the center position. Let's get into it. There certainly are a lot of things that need changing in Toronto based on the way this season just went down, where they had a bottom 6 record, missed out on getting any sort of lottery luck, don't have a first round pick this season. And yes, even though there are a lot of problems, these things are going to take time. You're not able to address all of them in this current offseason, but there does need to be some sort of hierarchy as to the priority on certain problems with the team. And one of them is just adding in players. And notably, we're questioning what position these players need to be. Where is the priority for the 19th overall pick in the draft, the 31st overall pick in the draft, and perhaps free agency? What are the main things that the Raptors need to address in the offseason? And according to Raptors fans yourself, especially the ones that are in this current community, and honestly, I've seen it all over the place. I've seen it in my Bleacher Report streams. I've seen it on Twitter. But again, I've also seen it in this community here on YouTube, where the main thing that fans want to address is in the center position. So much so that when I asked what the positional priority should be for the Raptors to address in the offseason, a whopping 60% of voters said that the biggest priority needs to be in the center position, which is something that I definitely do not agree with, and we're going to address why over the course of the video. Before we go any further, reminder, this is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to giving you Toronto Raptors content in videos like this, but I also do live streams covering the latest news around the league, especially about the Toronto Raptors. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, keep updated with that great content, and drop a like on this video if you do enjoy along the way. Now, I'm not suggesting that my opinion is the be-all, end-all. I would never do that. I never suggest that. I'm merely presenting my case here as to why, I do think this team does need a center, but maybe not in the way a lot of the people in this community think so. And hopefully I'm trying to shed some light here on my side of the equation here, and maybe try to get you on my side of this one, because the biggest priority for me looking at this roster, well, it's absolutely the backup point guard position. This has been a priority that has, well, it's been a priority for me, but it very much has not been a priority for the Raptors for a number of years. They just have not addressed the backup point guard position. It's been pretty clear that Malachi Flynn is an unreliable backup point guard, but he's been pretty much that role for the last 3 seasons straight. And when he hasn't lived up to the billing that the Raptors have made for him, suggesting that, hey, he's going to be our backup point guard, they have no other answer. Whether, you go to a two-way player like Jeff Dowtin, who runs out of eligibility before you get to the actual postseason, you lose in the play-in tournament game. Not sure how much he would have affected that game if he did play, but that's the point. They have to scrounge around for certain players to fill this void here, and we're going into another season here where there's no clear indication who that backup point guard is going to be. On top of that, we look at the defensive situations overall for the Raptors. This is a completely changed team, and one of the areas the Raptors really struggled this season, certainly there were some things on the offensive end of the court that continue to get better and better over the course of the season. That did not occur on defense, and when there was a tough defensive matchup for the Raptors to handle, they didn't really have a specific player to throw on that offensive player that gave them that difficult matchup. That typically had to be on the defensive end of the court, Ochai Agbaji, who likely won't be a starter next season. And sure, it's good to have him, but the Raptors are definitely in need of a big wing defender, somebody who can play as the 3 or the 4 and can defend on the wing. You need size there, you need athleticism, you need somebody who can defend there. I'm not calling for, a player like OG Anunoby, but, somebody on a little bit of the cheaper side. Easier said than done acquiring a player like that, but that needs to be a bigger priority for the Raptors this season, like the upcoming season. It's clear there's no backup point guard. It's clear there's no big wing defender. But as far as the center position is concerned, Raptors have centers. Jakob Poeltl is a great starting center on a great contract. We clearly saw the effect Jakob Poeltl had on the team when he wasn't there, when he wasn't having an effect. The record the team had without Jakob Poeltl was just absolutely diabolical. Now, his injury coincided with the Raptors tanking 100%, but the team probably picks up a few more wins here or there if Jakob Poeltl is playing in some of these games. And, aside from the impact that the player has, we can also discuss the contract. 3 more years at $20 million per year is an outstanding contract for a starting center who's a good rim protector, who does his job on offense, is a good screen setter, is a great pick and roll partner for players like Emmanuel Quickley, and whoever hopefully comes in, they better bring in a backup point guard. And on top of Jakob Poeltl, you also have Kelly Olynyk, who can play as a center, and did so when Jakob Poeltl was injured. What's great about Kelly Olynyk, he spaces the floor, good passer, especially out of the high post. Maybe not the most adept defender, but also I guess, a bit more versatility positionally where he can play as the 4 or the 5. Now, the Raptors need to add in another center on top of that, but it seems to me like the most filled out spot in the depth chart right now is pretty much the center position. Like, you can look at shooting guards. If Gary Trent doesn't return, like, it's just Grady Dick. You can look at forwards like Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett starting. Like, yeah, Ochai Agbaji coming off the bench. We'll see if Bruce Brown is still with the team. Point guard, I address, there's no backup. But for center, you've got Poeltl on a great contract. You've got Kelly Olynyk on a 2-year contract, $12 million a year or so it was. These are fine players to have in these positions, but the continuous support from Raptors fans as to what position needs the most help, it continues to be the center position. And in fact, coming for the 19th overall pick, people are still adamant that Zach Edey is the right player to take with the 19th overall selection, which is, again, another area where I have some pushback on this. Some people also suggest that the free agent market is where the Raptors need to pursue a center. In fact, they need to pursue a center specifically to replace Jakob Poeltl, like somebody like Nic Claxton, but this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Whether you're high on Zach Edey or not, I certainly am on the lower side of things with the player, but even if you are high on the player, you certainly need to have the realistic understanding when looking at him that this is not a player that's going to come in and contribute, from day one as a starter specifically. Like, could he be coming off the bench from day one? Yes, but you absolutely cannot draft Zach Edey with the impression he's going to start from day one. At least I really do not think so. So if you're bringing in Zach Edey, you're bringing a player who is likely to be your third string center because you're not replacing Jakob Poeltl to bring Zach Edey into your team. So Zach Edey's the third center. And look, I think Zach Edey as your third center does make a good degree of sense. Having that size, just having that sort of wild card specialist sort of player to throw in specific roles in the game. I like that. I really do like that for Zach Edey. But do I like that with the 19th overall pick? Likely around where he's slated to be drafted based on the current mock drafts, based on the current projections. I'm not so sure. I think there are specific players who can fit into a role better from day one, have a bigger presence for the team from day one, who the Raptors could look to select with 19th overall pick. So 31st overall pick, hey, if Zach Edey's available, I'd be okay with that. 19th overall pick, not so much. I do agree that there is a need to address the third slot in the center depth chart. Absolutely, I agree. The Raptors need to bring in size and rim protection for that spot. We saw what the team looked like without Jakob Poeltl, as I said. So if Jakob Poeltl goes down, it can't just be Kelly Olynyk backing up the Raptors in the center position or signing a guy like Malik Williams to the team. Good grief. There needs to be a better presence there in the depth chart 100%. But does that make it the biggest priority? No, because that's not a guy getting the consistent minutes that a big wing defender would coming off the bench, like a backup point guard would coming off the bench, especially if Gary Trent leaves. The need for shooting all of a sudden increases as well beyond the need for a center on this team. And if the thought process is not filling out the depth, if the thought process is Jakob Poeltl's not the right guy for this team, the Raptors need to replace Jakob Poeltl, the question becomes who would? First of all, Nic Claxton is going to be a hot commodity, and I find it extremely unlikely the Raptors would even be able to become a player in the Nic Claxton sweepstakes in free agency. But if they were, let's say they were, you have to consider, what is Nic Claxton going to be worth? I can guarantee he's going to be making a whole lot more than $20 million per year, which is what Jakob Poeltl's making. Nic Claxton's likely in the range of, top of my head here, I'm thinking like minimum is going to be 27, absolute basement's got to be 25. So I'm thinking like near 30 range. Could he even creep above that if he gets into a little bit of a bidding war? Potentially. That's an expensive player. And what does Nic Claxton bring to the team that Jakob Poeltl doesn't? What would a guy like, some people have their eyes on Jonas Valanciunas, what does he bring to the team that Jakob Poeltl doesn't? For Nic Claxton, maybe he's a bit better as a rim protector, but he's still not tremendous in space on defense. Not a lot of centers are. Offensively, he's as bad, if not worse, of a free throw shooter than Jakob Poeltl is. His passing is much worse than Jakob Poeltl. So, we talk about floor spacing all the time. Jakob Poeltl doesn't space the floor by shooting, but he's an excellent screen setter, which gives more space to the ball handler. He's an excellent passer out of the high post, so you still have to defend him in those areas. And he can create space and create opportunities with his passing. Not to mention, he's a good scorer as well on the inside. Like the right-handed push shot, that floater that Jakob Poeltl has, it's almost automatic. I don't think Nic Claxton brings a whole lot of a difference of a presence to this team compared to Jakob Poeltl. And Nic Claxton's going to be a whole lot more expensive. Yes, he's He's younger, but it's not like Jakob Poeltl is old at this present point. And you look at guys like Jonas Valanciunas. I do think his floor spacing is a touch overrated. Yes, he can shoot a little bit, low volume, but defensively, he's a liability. Every year in the playoffs, it comes out. He can't play. He can't hang in big moments because he just doesn't have it there defensively. The Raptors, struggling on defense so much, need to have that presence, need to have that rim protection that Jakob Poeltl brings. So, is Jakob Poeltl the ideal fit for this team? Like, I think every team in the NBA is chasing a rim protector who can shoot threes. Everybody wants that. There's not a lot of them. They're very hard to get. They're very hot commodities. So, considering the options that are out there, is there anyone that makes sense to replace Jakob Poeltl with? No. Financially, if there's better ones, financially they're going to cost a whole lot more, which is just money unnecessarily spent in my opinion, or they don't bring the level of defense required to really fit with this current Raptors team and this Raptors project. So for Jakob Poeltl, I think that the Raptors are locked in on a 3-year contract where, look, people keep talking about this timeline here. Jakob Poeltl's on a 3-year contract. The Raptors are going to continue to get better. Jakob Poeltl has no problem being on a team that's not very good as long as they're trying to win. The indication right now is the Raptors are going to be going into a season where they are trying to win. They are not going into this season looking at that draft pick. They are going into this season trying to make the playoffs. Jakob Poeltl has stated already that he's completely fine with a project like that. He just doesn't want to be on a team that purposely is tanking out the gate or at any point. The Raptors, look, could it come to that? Who knows? But that's not the goal for the season. Jakob Poeltl is comfortable with this project. And if he's not comfortable with it, he'll let us know, and that point will be the time to trade him. But as far as the draft is concerned, as far as free agency is concerned, yes, getting a center is something that I think the Raptors should address. A third center for this team, as I mentioned. But as far as the priorities or the hierarchy of need for this team, center is a whole lot lower to me than the backup point guard position, whole lot lower than a big wing defender, and possibly, if Gary Trent leaves especially, a whole lot lower than bringing in floor spacers and shooters. Yes, the Raptors need it, but priority-wise, this is not the highest. The Raptors need to put their financial capacity and their energy into fixing other things before they look into the center position 100%. So, presenting my case here, if you're on the side of needing a center, maybe are you off it? Do you change your thoughts at all? What are your thoughts overall in the video? Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That's all for me for today. Drop a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe to the channel as well for more Raptors content just like this. And I will see you again next time for another video here on Amateur Hour Sports.